So welcome to this recording of my Apidays Helsinki talk, and also an incarnation of the New York talk that I did. It's the Helsinki one was a further evolved one of the one that I did in New York, but that one wasn't recorded. So with this way, it's probably good to use it for both. So. Unlike what this slide is saying, this is not a talk that I gave at Apidays in Paris. But this is where my story started, because for the Paris API days, I did this talk. API should be products, devportals should be too. And already back then, I had started thinking about like a slight twist in this story. That's why for New York I actually did another presentation, but I had already submitted it for Helsinki. Anyway, the story was that I started suspecting that there might be a slight twist in the story, because maybe APIs shouldn't necessarily be products, and that's where this API should be products, devportals should be too, or shouldn't they? This is where that or shouldn't they came from, and that was the start of this conversation. Because in January, right after API Days Paris, I posted this API's future blog post that APIs are utilities, not products. And that was an interesting story because I actually got quite some engagement on that article. People got somewhat, may I even say, upset about it, because treating APIs as products is something that's very, very near to our heart. And I've got a whole spiel about it and have a whole explanation. And ultimately, where this has led to is this thinking around interface portfolio strategy, thinking about how to use devportals to defend against commoditization. Because if APIs should be utilities instead of products, then there's a risk for commoditization and all of that. And this is what I'm going to try to wrap in the next 17 minutes, or minus, plus or minus. But first, very quick word about our company. Because I'm Kristof Van Tomme, I'm the CEO of Pronovix, which is a consultancy that's specialized in developer portals. That's all we do. We build developer portals, about 90 people, and we do, to be able to do that, we do a bunch of community things, like we organize the DevPortal Awards. The awards are just announced for 2024. So if you have a developer portal and you would like to see if maybe you could win an award, or if you want to figure out like how you measure up in the community, maybe that's something you could go and check out. It's devportalawards.org. It's a free awards. Very, very welcome to join. I also run the API Resilience podcast next to the Developer Success podcast, and there's a third podcast, like there's also the API Docs podcast we do at our company. But the API Resilience podcast is one that's very close to my heart, because it's the place where I get to geek out on API philosophy and to think about what is really going on in the API world and where is it all going, and what's kind of like the future of all of this. And this is also where this story has gotten a lot of food for thought, or food for this story has come from conversations I've had on the API Resilience podcast, and I'll refer to a couple of specific episodes. But what do I mean with APIs are utilities, not products? So there's this thing that we like to compare APIs to Lego blocks, because who doesn't like Lego? Well, probably there's some people, but most people really, really love Lego, because it's this awesome thing. You can build new things, you can get really creative. It's like interoperable, and it just it just gives this really good feeling that especially if as a parent, it's really nice to give your kids Lego bricks, because you can dream that they're learning to become to develop their engineering mindset. The thing is that when we compare APIs to Lego bricks, I'm not sure if that is really, really true, because I think that it would be more apt to compare APIs to building bricks. Because when most of us, I know there's some people that play in their free time with APIs to do cool stuff, but most of us, when we're building things for our jobs, our bosses or our managers or our colleagues or our co-founders, they don't necessarily want us to be playing around and to be like building stuff up and like, oh, let's break it down again, let's build it up again, let's break it down again, and let's build up. That's not really what people are expecting when you're creating something that other people will be depending on. Similarly, when somebody starts using your application, they don't want you to start changing things too much. Similarly, when people use your APIs, they don't want you to start changing things too much. So there's a different set of expectations that people have about APIs that are, well, they're different from what you would expect to do with Lego blocks. And this actually is pointing at a really interesting thing, that APIs really, if you think about it, are more like intermediate goods than like really products on their own right. And now, okay, so anyway, I start feeling the opposition building, like, Kristof, what are you talking about? Like, don't make me give up these API products, because doing APIs as products has, like, it really improves things. And I think it doesn't mean that you have to like go back on the good things of APIs as products, because I think APIs or utilities are a further evolved version of that. But let me explain a little bit where, like, a couple of data points to explain why I believe that this is the case. So one of my guests, one of our guests, because back at that time I was running the API Resilience podcast together with Mark Bergauer. One of our guests was Jay Bloom. Jay Bloom, who is back at the time he was working for Red Hat. I think now he's running his own consultancy. Jay was talking. He developed this three economies model, which is an attempt to explain why, or what you can do to deal with this business and the IT side of things. Like, in large organizations, they have, back in the days, Gartner used to talk about bimodal IT. You have the business side of IT, and you've got like the infrastructure, the IT side of software, and these are two very different groups of well, there's two very different ways of running software projects. And on the business side, you're trying to build things that have variety, so that they can address more business needs in a better way. So, like, you're trying to capture more value from customers by creating more different products that are better adapted to specific segment of customer needs. On the IT side, on the inside, you're trying to build for scale. So, like, here you're in differentiation. So this is the business side. On the IT side, you're trying to build for scale. You're trying to create. You're trying to make as many people use the same systems as possible, so that you can reduce cost by increasing scale. Now, when you're trying to have business and when you're trying to have differentiation and scale working together, that doesn't really work. And what you often see in the API world is that people get stuck in that because APIs are products, so there should be assets of differentiation. But then at some point, it doesn't really work out the way. It's hard to find a way to monetize your APIs and stuff like that. So then at some point, it's like the car is turned into reverse, and now we're trying to build for scale. And that can be really jarring when you have an API program where you're trying to switch between these two modes. Now, what Jay Bloom argues in his three economies model, and if you're listening to this, Jay, I hope I'm not butchering your ideas. I'm sure these are my own interpretations of his ideas, go read the source material or go listen to the episode that we did together with him. But Jabe talks about a third economy, an economy of scope. So you have the economy of differentiation, which is where you're trying to create variety and capture more value by creating a better differentiated product. You have the economy of scale, where you're trying to reduce variability and to reduce the costs by doing it more times. And you have an economy of scope, which are assets that become better from reuse. And this is really, really essential. These are things that become better the more times they get reused, also by your competitors. So it's not only inside of your own organization, also in the market as a whole. Give an example. If you have a technology that the whole industry is standardizing on, it's better to also use that technology and to compete in certain other areas. So there's that force field between what are the areas where you're going to differentiate and where the areas you're going to collaborate. And APIs firmly should be an area where, as much as possible, you're trying to be in a collaboration mode rather than in competition mode, because that will help more people to build integrations with your APIs and for your software and your business to be better interoperable with a larger number of other organizations. Now, this is not something new. This has been happening for a very long time. I think that we as an industry needs to come to this realization that is actually where most of our APIs should be playing. But to give you a couple of examples. For example, I had Victor on the podcast, on API Resilience podcast, and he was talking about Kubernetes as an ecosystem that was basically built around an extensible API standard. So because there's this like standard of this API standard that everybody's using, and then they build a little bit of value add on top by extending it a little bit. But by having this API standard, the Kubernetes ecosystem was able to grow into this really huge ecosystem of players, where a bunch of interoperable players are doing a lot of interesting things. Similarly, the banking sector, PSD2, banks were forced to do open APIs for banking. But a lot of them were trying to create their own API specifications. You get like if you think about it, like if you're thinking from I'm a product owner and I'm trying to build a product, then you're going to try to build the best product that is highly differentiated from what everybody else is doing. And like, for example, for open banking, this is not necessarily a good thing. Actually, it's a bad thing. Like it would be much better if the banking sector, at least for the open APIs, would have a standardized API design, which would make it easier for other parties to play on top of that. Right now, you have aggregators that have to create that interoperability layer to deal with the complexity of all these different standards. And that is meaning that banks don't have direct access to the consumers of their APIs anymore, because their APIs are being consumed through an aggregator. So it would be much better if they would have a shared API design that then consumers would be using directly. So I suspect, I'm not 100% sure, but when I was reading the news about PSD3, I suspect that maybe something like this is what's going to happen when they're talking about establishing detailed specifications for open banking data interfaces. Another example is Camara in the telecom sector. In the telecom sector, operators globally are collaborating together with the Linux Foundation to create a set of open API specifications that are enabling application developers to take advantage of some of the capabilities of the telecom operators that today they don't have access to. Make it really concrete. For example, if you would like to have the ability to boost the download speeds on your application, because if people are using it in the middle of town, they'll be able to do something interesting, like and get more bandwidth, or to get priority on a network, like you're selling hot dogs at a festival, and everybody's taking selfies. You maybe want to pay a little bit more so that you can keep doing financial transactions, even though that the network is quite saturated. This kind of stuff is what Kamara is trying to do. And instead of each trying to build their own API for this, telecom operators are collaborating on that. So now, when I talk about APIs as utilities rather than products, one of the first big objections, and this is why people get so get excited, get exasperated, or get worried when I start talking about APIs as utilities rather than products, is that they're worried that a utility means that this API is going to be commoditized, and that most companies, most like managements, don't want to invest in commodities because it's harder to make any profits in commodities. Like you need very different things. And I think the key thing there is to realize that APIs are a part of an API product. And similarly to how a product category like soap, for example, are a category that is being used by the actual products that are being sold to the market. And a really good example of commodities that are not commoditized or in an economic sense is, for example, the fast-moving consumer goods. Procter & Gamble basically has made it their business to create differentiated products inside of highly commoditized product categories. And I don't know about you, but I'm not buying the cheapest soap. We're using some fancy soap that's great for your hair, whatever that they've been able to sell us. With herbs, I think in our case, these are highly differentiated products, even though that under the hood the product category is the same, and it's not necessarily a commodity anymore. But what can you do to turn an API, if an API is a utility, what can you do to turn an API into a differentiated good? How do companies like fast-moving consumer goods companies, how do they do differentiation? There's a couple of different angles, and I've just taken a couple. There's definitely more than these, but I think these are some important ones. So first of all, product design. Yes, you can make unique features. You can create a better UX. Marketing, branding, product marketing, packaging and delivery, customized plans, optional features, customer service and experience, distribution. Like, for example, the $1 shaving knife is a good example. You can create a completely different distribution with a different plan that can help you to take like a counter position against another company. And then pricing, you can have economy models where you're trying to go for low cost, or premium models. There's a bunch of different things. Now, I've gone really quickly over this because it's not so much about these individual things that I want you to pay attention to. I want you to pay attention to the pattern, because first of all, packaging and delivery, this is what you're doing with a developer portal. You're packaging your APIs and you're helping to deliver them to developers. So you could actually argue that dev portals are what turn APIs into API products. Secondly, you see all the green stuff. Basically, all of these are things that you do in the developer portal, except maybe for unique features or optional features. That might be part of your API design, or might be part of your infrastructure. Even those, to some extent, will be documented by your developer portal. But all the other stuff, all the green stuff, are things that you are doing in your developer portal to wrap your APIs with, so that they become an API product. And this is basically what a lot of fast-moving consumer goods also do, is that it's the documentation and the packaging that turn commodities into differentiated products. So this is one big point. That's yes, APIs are utilities rather than differentiated products. So it's better to treat APIs as standards and to work together on standards, and to use your development portal to differentiate your API offering so that you can stand out in the markets or but not necessarily with a different API, but maybe with a shared API. There's another way, because one of the things that we have seen in developer portals is that there's this new pattern that we've seen emerging, which is what I call an embedded solution. And you see an example here on Stripe documentation, where you have the payments API, and then they have built something on top of the payments API, like a pre-built checkout page that you can use to accept online payments. Basically, what they're doing is they have their API, which is like, okay, so if you want to build a custom integration, great, here's the API. But if all you want to do is checkout, then maybe you want to use our checkout page instead, because it's going to make your life simpler. Similarly, on Adyen's developer portal, on the terminals API, there's this call out, our standalone solution, which is basically, okay, it looks like you're about to create your own terminal. Great for you, you're awesome. But do you only need one or two or three? Like maybe you want to buy one of these things instead of building your own system. It's going to be a lot cheaper to maintain. Similarly, on Twilio, when you look at their portal, they started adding like products and solutions. So there's this trend where we're going from developer portals that are all about APIs and APIs only to developer portals that are about APIs and other interfaces that are built on top of those APIs. So you're creating an interface portfolio that's addressing specific customer needs at the granularity that your customers need, so that you're not only providing APIs and then everybody has to pay the API integration cost and maintenance cost. But you have the APIs because they're really important, because they're your layer that helps you to protect and to manage the traffic. But then you're building also stuff on top of that. So don't be an API purist. Think about, in your interface program, think about your APIs, obviously, and your API program, but also think about your other interfaces that you need to add to your interface portfolio. A clear example from one of our customers, a KBC Bank in Belgium, they have a business solution catalog where you can like browse for problems, like for example, how can I get a loan for my electric bicycle? I think that's the KBC bicycle loan problem or solution or set of solutions, where they have a QR code, widgets, and a partner program, and then also an API. And you can choose which of these are right for you. If you're just like, you don't want to build something custom, maybe you just want to print out a QR code and then hang that up in your shop. And it's the most lowest, like low-tech way of creating a digital journey. So when you do this kind of stuff, you can move up the value chain and to create out a more balanced interface portfolio. Because, and then I'm about to wrap things up, because really, really important thing is that 90% of the business population, representing more than half of GDP globally, are small and medium-sized companies. And most of these companies don't have the money to build custom integrations, to build custom software integrations. They would much rather use something out of the box. And for those people, it's important to have like ready-made solutions that they can just, like low no-code stuff that can help them to create these digital journeys. So then you can start thinking, when you start incorporating that into your strategy, you can start thinking about how to adapt your interface portfolio to your developer audience and to create a better experience for also business developers that might not have the money to pay for custom code integration. And I have some initial ideas about interface portfolio canvas, where you can basically it's a modified Worley map, where you're looking at what's the visibility of an interface, and then should it be an API or something. Like, if you're interested in this stuff, just get in touch. Yeah, if you're in summary, just wrapping up this presentation, APIs are part of API products. That's the first thing I talked about. Developer portals can help you to differentiate your API offering. And then lastly, an interface portfolio needs to be adapted to your developer audience. And this is how you can differentiate your interface portfolio program instead of your API products. Now, if you want to learn more about this stuff, and I have, so we're doing a lot of thinking about this. We're working on different solution patterns that we are seeing out in the wild, and that we're thinking about for developer portals, and if you have a developer portal, could also be part of a consulting engagement or something like that. Or if you just want to see something cool, I'm working on an idea that can help you to adapt your interface portfolio to your developer audience in an automated way. If you're interested in this, and you're running or planning or considering building an API marketplace, or you have a developer portal or doing something like that, go and scan that QR code, and then fill out the questionnaire. And then not only can we set up a one-on-one chat to talk about this idea that I'm working on, it's like a demo for a solution portal and how you could do that. But also you can get free access to the AI the Docs recordings. It's a conference that we organized about the intersection between AI, APIs, and documentation. With that, I'll want to wrap it up. This is a last pitch. Go check out this. This is for our newsletter, where we send out articles about things like this. And yeah, like to invite you to get in touch with us if you're thinking about any of this, or if you want to learn more, or connect me on LinkedIn. And yeah, happy to be continue our conversation sometime. Thank you very much.